Welcome back once again at SHIP with the Kankoli College Kankoli one-day conference on recent trends in social sciences. Now, we are starting with the plenary session. For this plenary session, we have with us the resource person, Mary Simon Lucy, Associate Extension Professor Emerita, University of Missouri, Columbia, USA. Another resource person we have with us, Dr. Vinita Sahu, Assistant Advisor, NAC, Bangalore, Karnataka, India. I request all the participants to unmute yourself and please do not show your screen. For the research paper presentation session 1, we have with us the chairperson, Dr. P.G. Wankhede sir, Head Department of Economics, Punyashlok Ahilyabai Holkar, Nagpur University. In plenary session 2, we have resource persons with us, Dr. Suhashini Patnamankan, visiting lecturer, Higher Educational Institution, Colombo, Sri Lanka, and in and also we have with us in plenary session 2, resource person, Professor Dr. Chamra Koreti, Head, Department of History, Rashtra Sant Tukadoji Maharaj, Nagpur University, Nagpur. Once again, I will welcome all the participants and attendees at the one-day International Interdisciplinary Conference, online conference on the recent trends in social sciences organized by Social Department, Social Science Departments and IQAC of our college. Now we are starting with plenary session first. For this plenary session, I cordially invite Professor Dr. Dilip Patil sir, the Director of Department of Lifelong Learning and Extension, Board of Studies, Rural Development, University of Mumbai, to introduce the eminent scholar and today's conference resource person. Dr. Dilip Patil sir, over to you sir.
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's my great pleasure to talk with my colleagues from all over Maharashtra and the principal of Kankavli College, management and trustees of Kankavli College, and my student.
Patil sir, kindly start your video. We are unable to see you.
Is it visible?
Not yet, sir. No, sir, not yet.
Is it
Okay,
visible?
continue, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You continue, sir.
But my video is there.
Sorry, sir.
I am visible.
Yes, sir. You are not visible, but you are audible, sir.
Okay, but then it is my I'm on my laptop, so I can
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can
You
go.
share your. Yes, sir. Now you are visible, sir.
So now I am at my just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Now I am on my mobile. So
Yes, sir. You are visible.
when
Go ahead, sir.
Professor Kadam and Professor Mumbarkar, Professor Satyavan Rane sir, they told me, sir, we organized one international conference. This is, I think, 2 months back. So I told them, okay, I'm having few contacts at various universities in world, as I'm director of uh, Community Development Society, which is a social science institute uh, at USA, and naturally, I want to introduce the teacher from USA to our Maharashtra colleagues of, in higher education. So I told, ask her, Mary Simon Lucy. So she agreed, and is our because of the time now is around 11 o'clock, and she at USA is around 12 hours back. So around 11 night is there. So that's why instead of disturbing her, we asked her for her 15 minutes presentation. So before that, I want to give you, as we are running early, 4 minutes early. So we should know who is she, and what is her work. So I introduce her as Dr. Simon Mary Simon Lucy. She is an associate extension professor emerita in Division of Applied Social Sciences at the University of Missouri, USA. She it's near Chicago. She is also currently uh, in the University of Missouri for the development of extension training for the TADMAC consortium focus on technology and modernization training for agriculture in Ghana. Her career in community development and extension span the past 35 years. Most recently, she served as a university director of Engaged Scholarship and the director of Missouri Campus Compact. This campus is around, I think, not less than 1,000 acre, which fosters integration of civic and community engagement work and learning into the curriculum and operation of its diverse network of approximately 20 Missouri colleges and universities. Prior to accepting her current position in 2017, she served as an assistant dean of the University of Missouri College of Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources and Community Development, program director of University of Missouri Extension. Under her leadership, numerous new collaborative and innovative programs were developed. She also led a national efforts for program evaluation and impact in extension community resources and economic development. For approximately 5 years, she co-led the Missouri University Extension annual program planning engagement process with local citizens across the state. In the 2017 process include community conversion with multiple stakeholders across the state, which laid the foundation for program reorganization. She also provided leadership for International Community Development Leadership Program with the University of Western Cape, South Africa, and co-leadership for Community Development Exchange with Thailand and Ireland. Lucy was co-founder of the Missouri University Community Development Academy and is known for her work in organization and participatory process, evaluation, international engagement. Her research has focused on leadership and organizational learning as well as program evaluation. She was inducted into the Academy of Community Engagement Scholarship in 2015. Is an Food System Leadership Institute Fellow 2010, a graduate of the National Extension Leadership Development Program 2001 and of the National Center for Food and Agriculture Leadership Program 1990. She was also awarded the International Faculty Engagement Award at the University of Missouri in 2014. And she has been active throughout her career in the Community Development Society in various roles, most recently as a co-chair for hosting the 50th anniversary conference of the CDS in 2019. Dr. Lucy earned her doctorate in educational leadership, MA in adult education, and BS in agriculture, plant science emphasis, and from the University of Missouri. So this is her 4 minutes introduction, and she is from variety of areas, and her intention to bring her here, my intention, to those who want to collaborate with her. There is a community development society which is a non-professional society, and I'm on the board of director. Last 5 years I'm attending various conferences. So those who are really interested in the work, there is a no limit for a subject or a faculty. Even though you've seen her BS in agriculture, plant science, and MA in adult education, PhD in education leadership. So various different areas can come together. So those who are really interested to develop their career at international level, so that's why I brought her here to talk with you, and those who are really interested to collaborate with her university or with her organization, you can, after her presentation, I'm available for giving answers to your questions. So yeah, always welcome. At least minimum 15 to 20 members should join CDS, Community Development Society. Is a part of social sciences. If you want to go at international level, like me, for last 5 years, I'm going every year to USA for the presentation, and we are having around 50 universities attached with that Community Development Society, and she is one of the director like me on that institute. So this is a particular for those who are really interested to develop their career at international level. So thank you very much, Kadam sir, and for giving me opportunity for her introduction, and we can now eager to see her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your guidance and valuable speech. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite our resource person, Mary Simon Lucy, Associate Extension Professor Emerita, University of Missouri, Columbia, USA, to deliver a speech.
Hello, and I'm delighted to be with you today as you come together to discuss the recent trends in social sciences. So thank you so much for inviting me. I look forward here to sharing a few key thoughts I have with you about recent trends. So first of all, I'll start by sharing a little bit of my context and a few key areas of trends with a little bit of detail about each, and then we can talk a little bit about the future. So as we start with my context, where I come from in discussing trends, first of all, I am from the United States, and I live in Missouri, which is in the center of the country, and have spent the past 35 plus years working at the University of Missouri in community development, in teaching and research, and especially in engagement and extension work with communities across the state, as well as some national work and even international work. My work is focused in community organization, in leadership, in value-added agriculture, and in rural health and communications. My past few years, I've spent a lot of time, maybe the last 10 years, working with partners collaboratively in Ghana and South Africa. And that also informs the context from which I share. And I've marked a few other places on the map where I've been involved with partners over my career. And all of this has been informed by my active participation and an incredible network of practitioners and researchers and teachers in community development through the Community Development Society. So I want to start with talking a little bit about 4 broad key areas. And all of these we can't help but recognize our current context because that has so affected how we see things, both adding to some of the complexity and bringing some of these areas to further light. So I'll be talking about broadly equality and equity, about the role of social media, but also just of technology, about sustainability, even though that's been here a while, what that means now, and what I've called civic agency. So I want to talk a little bit about each of these. So when I talk about equality and equity, I think we've had a hyperactive lens and hyperactive look at issues around race, especially again in the United States, but not just in the United States. And if it's not race, it's about ethnicity, it's about different cultures, and certainly about gender. And we can't help but pay attention to that. And I think it's going to color our work, and it should inform our work, and we should be thinking differently and challenging ourselves. I think this whole issue of engagement, there's a really strong trend, and it has gained a lot of momentum, and it's never more important than right now, that research that we do, the things that we do when we take students into communities, has to have relevance, and it has to have a social justice aspect to it. And this so much means that we work with communities, not for them. We don't do things to them. And we recognize that we collaborate, we create knowledge together. But it also means a recognition of Indigenous knowledge in that context of that community. And we can't ignore that almost in juxtaposition, in opposite of this, is this rise in what I call populism. And we see it in all parts of the world.
त्यांच्याच नाही आहे
हॅलो सर, शेखर सर, स्क्रीनवरती म्यूट दिसतंय बघा. स्क्रीनवरती म्यूट दिसते आतमधल्या.
And I think it's come to the forefront, especially in our pandemic, is who has access, whether it's the physical access because of bandwidth, or it's being able to afford it to begin with. And that's actually driven a stronger wedge and created more inequality in many cases. And with technology and social media, the power of big data, it so affects everything that is going on, and researchers so much are using it. Again, big data itself isn't necessarily positive or negative, it can be used different ways, but we have to pay attention to how it affects what's going on. I'm going to talk about sustainability. Has been around for a long time, and we have thought about it sometimes in terms of that connection with the key areas of environment, of social and social justice, of economic, of culture. But so often it has been separated out as if it's only about the environment, or it's only in juxtaposition to the economy. Right now, what I see is a convergence, but I also see with the recognition and the greater and greater recognition of climate change, that we have a key opportunity to be thinking about what are we doing in terms of sustainability? How is it affecting those of different social strata? Where are those economic opportunities? Is it the same in all cultures? And recognizing this is no longer an issue just that can be afforded by a rich country. It affects every country. In fact, not paying attention to every country means that we're seeing mounds of plastic building up, or we're seeing, because there hasn't been an opportunity to create the vehicles to protect or to engage people in various cultures, even in our own countries here. And I apologize, I think maybe my screen disappeared for a moment. I'm going to keep going though. So with that, I want to talk about the last key area. And I've called this area civic agency, but it embraces a number of things that I see happening and that I think the evidence shows, the research is showing, is that, again, community development and the idea of people coming together to work for their common good and for the good of the community, it's not a new idea, but it's an idea that has great merit, great saliency, great importance right now in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of issues around equality and issues around, whether it's a multinational corporation versus a community, or even more socially responsible corporations. So what we're also seeing though is I'm seeing an incredible amount of innovation and creativity as the pandemic has caused us to say, wait a minute, maybe we don't need this certain way of doing things. And also as communities, as businesses, universities, all kinds of people have found ways to do things differently and maintain these connections with each other and create the kinds of social networks that we hope will be stronger, but certainly to maintain some good social networks for the economy, but for all kinds of things to happen right now. It also means that in the midst of some of the divisions that we have right now, regardless of COVID-19, there's never been a greater need for civic discourse, for dialogue, for really listening to each other and building that sense of connectedness. And I see a tremendous new focus on collaboration. Just the fact that we can connect today might not have been something we would have been as apt to do 2 years ago. So as we pull this together, I think one of the fascinating aspects is I've really thought about this and thought about where from my reading, from talking with colleagues, from my own work, a fascinating area, and I've alluded to some of this, is the convergence. It's where all of these trends come together in this time when we're dealing with the pandemic. So and they are related. And I'm sure if we had time, we could spend a whole day just discussing what are the real issues. That's what you're going to be discussing. So with that, I really challenge you and challenge myself at the same time to think about, what do we know right now about these various things happening? What has the pandemic taught us and is teaching us? How do we work differently? What
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was indeed privilege and great honor to listen to you, ma'am. Thank you once again for giving your valuable time and being with us. On the behalf of our college, we will definitely look forward to collaborate with you in future. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Sweetie Jadhav, Assistant Professor, Department of English, for the introduction of our distinguished scholar and today's conference resource person, Dr. Vinita Sahu, Assistant Advisor, NAC, Bangalore, Karnataka, India. Ma'am, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Ms. Sweetie Jadhav from Kankoli College, Kankoli. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce our resource person, Dr. Vinita Sahu ma'am. Dr. Vinita Sahu is currently working as an assistant advisor in NAC in the area of higher education and quality assurance. At present, apart from assessment and accreditation of higher education institutions, she is entrusted in data validation and verification awareness programs and quality assurance related initiatives. Prior to joining NAC, her research area was heterocyclic chemistry, QSAR, computational chemistry, etc. She is a doctorate in chemistry and published almost 40 papers in reputed national, international journals and conferences as well. The papers are published in reputed journals like American Chemical Society, Elsevier, Springer Link. She has good academic and research experience. She has also worked in Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, as INSA Fellow under Teachers category. She has worked as CSIR Research Associate in Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. She is a gold medalist in MSc, university topper, and has qualified NET GATE with All India rank 229, SLATE, and CSIR, JRF, and SRF. She is the recipient of various awards and accolades like Best Science Research Award from MPCST, that is Madhya Pradesh Council of Science and Technology, Bhopal in Physical Sciences. Then Academic Excellence Certificate from Devi Ahilya University, as well as Shakuntala Bhondwe Award by Devi Ahilotsav Samiti. Her research paper has been selected in Best 6 Presentation in Young Scientist Competition organized by Indian Science Congress Association in Shillong in 2008. Also, one of her research papers has been selected in the Best 6 for Presentation in Young Scientist Competition, again organized in 2008 by 4th Madhya Pradesh Science Congress in Indore. She has served as section editor and reviewer of VRI International Journal from May 2013 till date. She is also serving as reviewer of various international journals such as Medicinal Chemistry, Research Springer Link, Elsevier, Taylor, Francis, etc. She has also received the K-FIST project and CSIR Research Associateship during her research tenure. It's a privilege for all of us to have an opportunity to listen to her. With this, I request Dr. Vinita Sahu ma'am to deliver her speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, madam, for the generous introduction. First of all, namaskar to everybody and to specifically the organizers of this conference. I just wanted to know, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I will just share my presentation now.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Whether the presentation is visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Visible.
So, very good morning to all of you. And I have listened to the previous speaker also. And from the morning, the people who are involved in the conference, they have taken a lot of initiative and efforts. So, first of all, hearty congratulations to the sponsor organizers for this particular web conference. Today's topic for me is NAAC's assessment accreditation benefits and relevance to society, because this particular conference is aimed and intended towards the social responsibilities or social relevance. So I would like to highlight on the parts how NAAC assessment accreditation, it has a relevance to the society as well. So let us understand what is NAAC and with what vision we are working in NAAC. So our vision is only one thing: quality. So to make quality the defining element of higher education in India through combination of self and external evaluation. So this is a very important thing. So we stress on quality, and that quality in higher education must be uplifted, and for that efforts from higher education institution side and our side, everything is together. So, and these are our missions. So what we do actually, we encourage self-evaluation, accountability, autonomy and innovation in higher education institution. We arrange periodic assessment and accreditation of the institution, so they get to know where they stand, what are their strengths and weaknesses, etc. We also encourage quality research related research initiatives, consultancy and training program. So all this thing which can improve the quality of higher education institution have been taken care by NAAC. And all these things we have transformed into the forms of metrics and key indicators, and then we are trying to encourage the institution towards the development of the towards the improvement of the quality in their particular field. So to accomplish all this mission, we have 5 core values. Number 1 is contributing to national development, which is very important, especially in the higher education sector. Second is fostering global competencies among students. So students should not be only taught or should not be exposed only to the national thing, but they should also have the global competency, because when they go out for research or postdoc or higher studies or for job for that particular matter, they should have all global competencies. We inculcate a value system in the students, which is very important, and I think India is known for that from ancient time. So value system, inculcating a value system in the student is very important point. Then promoting the use of technology, because we know that today's world, especially during COVID-19 era, we have understood that technology is how important, and because of technology today in this very terrific time, very pathetic time, pathetic era, we are able to meet each other, we are able to exchange our ideas through this virtual mode. So promoting the use of technology is also one of the core value of NAAC. And last but not the least and very important is the quest for excellence. So excellence, finally it matters a lot, and for that particular excellence in quality, we work together. And then we undertake the assessment accreditation of the higher education institution on certain established criteria. I think you may be aware of all those criteria. If not, we'll be taking up all those criteria into upcoming slide. And then once institution get accredited by NAAC, they get a certificate which is valid for a particular fixed period, which is mostly a 5-year time. So within 5 years, they can further improve the quality in higher education in their institution, and then they can come back for the next cycle of assessment accreditation. So the very immediate or very next question come into the minds of the stakeholder is, why NAAC? If I'm going to undertake NAAC assessment accreditation, how I'm going to get benefited? And many of you just know that I will be getting a grade, and that would help me if I approach to funding agencies, or if I am affiliated or an autonomous affiliated college and trying to become an autonomous college, or if I have to retain my autonomy, or else maybe if you are a college of potential excellence, so some schemes. So I will be in touch with all those things. But not only that, there are many benefits of NEC assessment accreditation. Few of them I have presented here. First of all, when an institution come for assessment accreditation, they get to know about their strength, weaknesses, and opportunities. So if you know your weaknesses, if you know your strength, opportunities, and challenges, then next job is very becomes very easy for you. You can plan the future. You can identify the areas of planning. You can have better resource allocation for those things. It gives you a new sense of direction to think, a new vision for next 5 years. You can make the plans, and then you can chalk out the plan and start working on those things. This also help in improving the pedagogical skills or pedagogical methods in teaching and learning. When you undertake NEC assessment accreditation, it also inculcate a kind of collegiality amongst the higher education institution, because when the different set of people come together with the same vision and same objective, then definitely a kind of collegiality develops among the higher education institution. Exchange of information, exchange of knowledge takes place. So which is again a very important point. And then of course it helps you in getting funds, and finally finance also matters. So if you get good funding from RUSA or from state government or from central government or from UGC, etc., then I think you can have a better infrastructure to accommodate the stakeholders like faculties and students. So that also finally help, and especially it helps you in research. It is also very beneficial from the society point of view, because when you are a college, but how do I identify? Because in India there are 50,000 colleges are there. So as a parent, as a student, how do I, as an employer, how do I identify which college is offering what, and up to what level I can trust on the particular college? So it gives a reflection of your quality to the stakeholders also, and they get enrolled to your college, and some kind of authenticity is also there. Apart from this, this also encourages the institution to perform better. That is the final thing, I think, ultimate thing which we expect through NEC assessment accreditation. There is no kind of auditing happens here, but the only thing is that to encourage the institution to perform better, having some constant which we believe that can be overcome with when we grow further. So it is very important from the society point of view, employer point of view, and also, as I told you, collegiality and intra and inter-institutional interactions get more stronger when you undertake NEC assessment accreditation. So these are some of the benefits of NEC assessment accreditation, and I think, and I expect, and I request most of the higher education institution to please come forward for this particular motive. So now NEC works on the 7 criteria, and as I told you, we finally emphasize on only on the quality. So quality is a 7-letter word, and we have accordingly we have 7 criteria which talks about different aspect of the institution. So these are the 7 criteria which I have listed here: curricular aspect, teaching, learning and evaluation, research, innovation and extension, infrastructure and learning resources, student support and progression, governance, leadership and management, and last criteria is institutional values and best practices. I have highlighted the 7th criteria because today I would be talking more about the institutional values and best practices, because our conference theme is social relevance and social responsibility. So I will just tell you how NEC has covered all this social relevance and social responsibility into criteria 7. So criteria 7 is an umbrella wherein we have put all the duties and responsibility of an individual and as an organization, and how we have portrayed it. I will just show in the next slide or upcoming slides. So this is the whole process how NEC undertakes this assessment accreditation. Institution has to register, then IAQA submission happens. Then after IAQA gets approved, SSR self-study report gets submitted. After that, there is a third party who validate and verify the data of the institution. If the institution passes this level, then they go to pre-qualify stage. Once they pass in pre-qualification, peer team visit happen for such institution, and finally they get an accreditation and they get a good grade. So this is the whole flow chart, which I would not talk much about here because our theme is slightly different. And these are the eligibility criteria. If somebody wants to come for NAAC assessment accreditation, at least 2 batches of students should be graduated or 6 years of existence. Apart from that, if you are having SRA compliance, ASHE compliance, and all affiliation compliances should be there, then you can just visit our NAAC website and check the eligibility criteria. If you feel you are eligible enough, you can apply, or any institution can apply for the NAAC assessment accreditation process. So now, the final aim of education is not getting the degree and getting into a new gate of unemployment, which is perfectly not the objective of the education. The education should be such that it empower the student. It should empower the student in all the manner, and holistic development of students should happen through education. So I'm not saying that every student who gets graduated should be placed, but yes, if not getting placed through some job or something, they should be able to create the opportunities for themselves and for others also. So self-employability is also a very important concept, because we can have now vocational education training concept, skill based education. So if a student is not getting job in some other company, they can create the opportunities for themselves and they can get self-employed. So this is it is finally to empower the student in a better manner. So that is what our purpose of education should be. And now we comes toward the theme of the conference, which is social responsibility. So a nice quote, I really liked this quote by Dennis Waitley. He said, there are 2 primary choices in life: either to accept the condition as they exist, or accept the responsibility for changing them. So being a citizen of country, and being an individual, and being part of the organization or an institution, I think the second idea looks better: accept the responsibility for changing them. So this is where this thought comes of social responsibility. And we know that being socially responsible, so what is social responsibility actually? So being socially responsible means that people and organization must behave ethically and with sensitivity towards social, cultural, economic, and environmental issues. So when we talk about social responsibility, I think all these things should be taken care. We should have sensitivity towards social, cultural, economic, and environmental issues. And these 4 things, which are the key things, social, cultural, economic, and environmental issues, are completely taken care by NAAC when we undertake the assessment accreditation. And how it is related, I will share with you. So it has 4 dimensions: legal, ethical, economic, and philanthropic. So now let us come towards the 7th criteria, which is institutional values and best practices. So when this particular criteria, earlier this criteria was not there when we were working before 2017, when I'm talking about the before RAF methodology. But in the revised assessment accreditation framework, we have changed the whole methodology itself, and this 7 criteria was a unique criteria which talks about the social responsibility and institutional values. So this criteria covers mostly all government slogans, all government initiatives with pertaining to social relevance and social responsibilities are taken care here. So this particular criteria is having 3 key indicators: institutional values and social responsibility, best practices, and institutional distinctiveness. And the overall weightage of this particular criteria is 100. So let us see how all these things are correlated here. So first key indicator, 7.1, institutional values and social responsibility. If the very first question is, our very first metric is gender equity. It talks about gender equity, measures initiated by the institution for promotion of gender equity during the last 5 years. So we have taken care here of promotion of gender equity, safety and security, counseling, gender sensitization plans, common rooms, daycare center for children of the staff, etc. So we have asked all such things, and we expect institution should undertake all such things, because finally the whole set of students who come for higher education, they should be sensitized toward all such things. So at least when they graduate or pass out, all these things they carry with themselves, and then in future they can perform better, or they can contribute to the society in all these things. The second is environmental consciousness and sustainability. So in this particular metric, we are talking about whether the institution is having facilities for alternate source of energy and energy conservation. So as we know now that there is a time is drastically changing, and now we should not only go for conventional source, energy resources. We should also try and make use of alternative energy sources, and what kind of energy conservation measures have been taken care. So we are asking here whether you have solar energy, whether you are using biogas plant, wheeling to grid, sensor-based energy conservation, use of LED bulb or any power-efficient equipment. So by asking such things, it is not that just we are asking an institution has to fill the data. By asking such things from more than 50,000 HEIs across the country and university, 900 university, it is a kind of habit, I would say, we are inculcating in the institution to stress upon all such things. So most of the things, if these 50,000 plus institution take care, and the same thing get reciprocated into the stakeholders, maybe students, maybe faculties, then I think we can do wonders in the field of social responsibility. And for all those sakes, we are asking such metrics, and we are encouraging and appreciating the institution if they are doing so. And the next metric, describe the facilities in the institution for the management of the following types of degradable and non-degradable waste. I think everybody knows we do a lot of work, but when it comes to management of the waste, there is a problem. There is still a problem. Although we have waste, solid waste management, liquid waste management, biomedical waste management, e-waste management, waste recycling system, and hazardous chemical and radioactive waste management. So we do a lot of work, but I don't think so still we have attained the stage wherein we are doing wherein we are handling this waste in an appropriate manner. So for this particular concern, we have one metric which talks about how you are managing the different kind of waste, and you have to describe and you have to show the photographs how you are doing it. So by doing, if an institution do it, if the head of the institution appreciate all such things, then I think automatically all such things goes to different generation of student, and then the whole nation can be taken care when we talk about all such things. So this is one metric I think which wherein we are asking about the waste management. Next metric is about water conservation facilities. So water is very important, and then water conservation facilities, what facilities are available in the institution. So we are asking here, rainwater harvesting is there or not, borewell or open well recharge, construction of tanks and bunds, wastewater recycling, maintenance of water bodies and distribution system in the campus. So by asking this metric, we are taking care of water conservation facilities which are available in the institution. The next metric talks about the green campus. So the institutional initiative for greening the campus as follows, because we know nowadays the pollution, whether it is air pollution, noise pollution, water pollution, etc., is increasing enormously. And in order to control that we must go green. So the effort taken by the institution, or the initiatives taken by the institution for this particular matter, we are asking whether you have restricted entries of automobiles, whether your students are encouraged to use bicycles or battery powered vehicles, pedestrian friendly pathways, ban on use of the plastic, which is a very big problem in today's world, and landscaping with trees and plants. So when we ask such things, I think we are encouraging and promoting such things. Then next question is about the audits. Institution is undertaking any kind of energy or environmental audit, because institution has a great responsibilities in today's world, because they are I would say they are the temples wherein the student enters and then they get the education, not only education but the value system get inculcated into their minds, and then when they go out and when they actually work in the field, they reciprocate all such things. So in order to build a better nation, all these practices should be inculcated into the students. So they should be sensitized towards the social responsibilities, what they are having. And generation to generation, if you do this, I think most of the problem can be resolved. And so I would say institution must not only do because NAC is asking all such things, so they should do, but also they should take it up as a individual responsibility to take care of the system, to take care of the social relevance, and then they should really show a great interest in doing all such things, and they should also encourage their student for that particular matter. So for this particular metric, we are asking whether institution is taking undertaking any kind of audit like green audit, energy audit, environmental audit, etc. Well, another question we have, wherein we are very sensitized towards the different segment of the society, Divyangan. What kind of facilities are available for the Divyangan in the institution when they get enrolled into your institution? How you are helping them? So whether you have any kind of ramp or lift for easy access to the classroom, and whether Divyangan friendly washrooms are there or not. Signage for tactile paths, lights, display board, signpost is there or not, are also whether they have Divyangan friendly accessible websites, screen reading software, mechanized equipment, human assistance, readers, scribes, etc. So by asking such questions, I think institution actually focus on such thing, and then they take a little extra effort, and then they plan such things, and then it really help for such kind of students who get enrolled into the institution. And then we are asking inclusion and situatedness. So we know that our country is a very diverse country. We have urbanite society, we have non-urbanite or rural places. We have a northeast wherein the complete geography is completely different from what we talk sitting in Bangalore. So India is a very diverse country, not only in terms of geolocation, but also in terms of culture, regional, linguistic, socio-economic things. So when an institution is established, people or students from different community, different culture, different region, different socio-economic background join the institution. So it is the institutional duty or the responsibility to create an inclusive environment for the student and for the faculty, wherein there is a tolerance and harmony factor for all the types of the institution who come from different diverse background. So how they are addressing such issues, this is also a very important component which we have taken care in the metric 7.1.8, which is actually talking about the inclusion and situatedness. So we are asking how institution is taking efforts or initiative in providing an inclusive environment, and that is tolerance and harmony toward the different diverse background students and faculties. So by doing so, we are encouraging the institution to really focus on such things. Then there is another metric, human values and professional ethics. So wherein we talk about sensitization of the students and employees of the institution to constitutional obligations. What are their values? What are their rights? What are their duties? And what is the responsibility of the being a citizen of the India? So it is really important that we should sensitize our students, sensitize our employee toward all their duties and responsibilities and rights, which is this inculcating these values for them to become a responsible citizen is very important. So we are asking such information also in the metric 7.1.9, which talks about human values and professional ethics. And then we are also asking whether institution is celebrating or organizing national, international commemorative days, events, festival, etc. So again, India is a very rich country when we talk about the cultural things. So we have so many days, so many reasons to celebrate, to organize many events and festivals. And I think we should sensitize our upcoming generation towards all such things. They should also know why it was, how it is, and how it should be. So for that particular sake, also we have a metric which talks about these things. And then a very important key indicator is the best practice. Herein, we are not telling the institution what you should be doing, but we are expecting from the institution what are the best practices they are following, to improve the quality of the higher education in the institution and or else to improve for the betterment of the society. So any two best practices which are followed by the institution, and they have to give the details. And recently we have done almost some 50 to 60 webinars we have done in the best practice series, wherein we have called the A++ graded higher education institution, and we have told them you share your best practices with the whole nation, and let them also know how you are doing with having all such constraint, how you have done best, and an institution have greatly happily shared their best practices, and I think it would have helped the other institution also to devise the best practices. So best practices is something which institution feel is they have devised by their own, considering their own particular considering into their own context, and what best they have done, that they can translate it as best practice. They have to fill the best practices, and also we expect the institution should host the best practices of their institution in their website. So let the people go through, and I think these best practices also should be revised by time to time. It should not be that from 10 years I am following one practice and I will be following the same practice. No, instead you have to revise and you have to do some changes also in the best practices. So this is also very important criteria. So the whole purpose of sharing this presentation, and why we are asking so many things in the criterion 7, which is the institutional values and best practices, because somehow people are doing all such things, maybe in micro level or minor or macro level, something like that, but it doesn't get recorded. This is one thing. The second thing is maybe many institutions might be doing it from their establishment date only, but first thing, it doesn't get recorded. Second thing is it doesn't get shared. So until you record it, you share it, I think we cannot bring the changes, or the whole purpose of doing all such good things would be defeated. So why NAAC is asking? NAAC is asking to record all such things. NAAC is asking to share all such things, and NAAC is asking to appreciate the institution who are involved into all such best practices or all such social relevance and social responsibilities. So we appreciate, and until we ask, I think many of the time institutions are doing, but they are not having that vision or objective. Or some of the time they might be doing, but only 50% of the things. So when we keep all such things together and when we ask in the form of questionnaire, I think institution get better idea, because things are being recorded, being shared, and then I think they all come together and they try to do something for the betterment of the society. So NAAC is asking to get it recorded, to get it shared, and to get it propagated, and also to appreciate the institution who are doing such activities. So finally, before conclusion, my request to all the stakeholders of the higher education and otherwise also, please come forward, come together and contribute toward the very important cause of the social responsibility and social relevance. Then only we can make a better community, better society, and better nation to live in. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for patient listening. Over to moderator.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was indeed privilege and great honor to listen to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving us an overview of NAAC, its process, and its mission. From your talk, we have come to know that NAAC encourage higher institutions to come up with better performance. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to request Dr. Patil, sir, the head of the Department of Geography and the convener of the conference, to propose a vote of thanks. Over to you, sir. Yes, sir, start.
Chalu Guru. Good morning to all. I feel honored and privileged to the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this special occasion. This is the proudest day in the history of our college. Today we have hosted the biggest international conference on recent trends in social sciences. On behalf of HP Mandal's Kankoli College, Kankoli, and organizing committee, I, Dr. Sambhaji Patil, heartily thank to resource person of this session, Dr. Mary Simon Luisi, Associate Extension Professor Emerita, University of Missouri, Columbia from USA, who delivered informative presentation on recent trends in social sciences. I would also like to thank Dr. Vinita Sahu, Assistant Advisor NAC, Bengaluru from India, who delivered very useful and informative presentation on how to face an NAC. I would also like to thank Dr. Dilip Patil, BOS Chairman, RD, University of Mumbai from India, and all participants of this international conference. Thank you again for making this session successful.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to inform all the participants